Konnichiwa, minasan. O genki desu ka? Welcome to the intermediate course of my channel. Let's learn Japanese with Eric. In this lesson, we learn how to express occasional occurrence using the conjugation ru koto ga aru. Yoroshii desu ka? Ikimashou. In the previous lesson, we learned how to express experience using the ta koto ga arimasu formula. For example, 私は寿司を食べたことがあります. For experience, the verb to eat, 食べる, is conjugated in the plain past tense, 食べた, and the whole sentence means, I have experience eating sushi. Now, what happens if we use the plain non-past form of the verb, or the ru form? 私は寿司を食べることがあります. 食べる is in the non-past tense. Then the meaning of the sentence changes to, sometimes I eat sushi. This is how you express occasional occurrence. Ru koto ga arimasu. The formula for expressing occasional occurrence is to take the dictionary form of the verb, the ru form, and add the set phrase koto ga arimasu, or koto ga aru in plain style. Ru koto ga arimasu means there are times when, so on and so forth, or sometimes, so on and so forth. Let's deconstruct the whole conjugation using our sample sentence, sushi wo taberu koto ga arimasu. There are times when I eat sushi. The verb to eat, taberu, is in the plain non-past form, which is also the dictionary form. It means will eat. Sushi wo taberu means I will eat sushi, and it is the subordinate clause, which is then nominalized or made into a noun clause so that it can be the subject of the whole sentence using koto. We took up nominalization using koto in lesson 44. The rest of the predicate is ga arimasu, which means it exists. We learned the use of the verb arimasu or aru in plain form in lesson 21. So the whole sentence literally means the fact exists that I will eat sushi. Or in other words, there are times when I eat sushi. Or sometimes I eat sushi. Just a quick review. If you recall the 10 basic verb conjugations which we studied in lessons 26 to 30, for each verb category, the conjugation we use for occasional occurrence is the plain non-past form of the verb, which is the same as the dictionary form or the ru form. This makes this conjugation very easy to use, and there are no new conjugations you need to learn. Except for the irregular verb da, which means to be, is, are, or am. When used in occasional occurrence, it changes to de aru. We will look at examples of this later when we use nouns. Basic verb conjugation of irregular verbs can be reviewed in lesson 30. Sentences expressing occasional occurrence usually use adverbs of frequency, such as tokidoki, meaning sometimes, tamani, which means occasionally, itsumo, which means always, or yoku, which means often. Let's look at sample sentences. I will read the Japanese and try to see if you can guess the meaning in English. 私は時々日本に行くことがあります。私は時々日本に行くことがあります。In English, sometimes I go to Japan. 私は, which means I, is in brackets because it's optional to say it. I is the default when no subject is mentioned. ラムケーキを作ることがあります。ラムケーキを作ることがあります。In English, there are times when I make rum cake, or sometimes I make rum cake. たまに日本の小説を読むことがあります。たまに日本の小説を読むことがあります。In English, occasionally I read a Japanese novel. Using plain style, けいこさんは日本へよく 帰ることがある。けいこさんは日本へよく帰ることがある。In English, Keiko often returns home to Japan. 大統領は飛行機に乗ることがあります。大統領は飛行機に乗ることがあります。In English, there are times when the president takes the airplane. 夫婦は喧嘩することがあります。夫婦は喧嘩することがあります。In English, there are times when couples fight. それは思うことがあります。それは思うことがあります。In English, there are times when I think of that, or sometimes I think of that. 図書館を使うことがあります。図書館を使うことがあります。In English, I sometimes use the library, or there are times when I use the library. Now let's look at examples of occasional occurrence that use adjectives and nouns. 食堂の食べ物はたまに辛いことがある。食堂の食べ物はたまに辛いことがある。In English, occasionally the cafeteria's food is spicy. The e adjective karai is put directly in front of koto because koto is grammatically a noun. You can review all about e adjectives in lesson 15. バスはいつも遅いことがあります。バスはいつも遅いことがあります。In English, there are times when the bus is always late. Our next example uses a na adjective. 日曜日は静かなことがあります。日曜日は静かなことがあります。In English, there are times when Sundays are quiet. Because koto is grammatically a noun, the na adjective shizukana can be put directly before it. You can review all about na adjectives in lesson 16. We can also conjugate adjectives into the negative. 学校のお手洗いはきれいじゃないことがある。学校のお手洗いはきれいじゃないことがある。In English, the school washroom is sometimes not clean. The na adjective kireina is conjugated into the negative here, kirei janai, and put directly before koto. Now let's see examples that use nouns. And remember, if we have nouns, our verb is the irregular verb da. And for occasional occurrence, this transforms to dearu. Our sentence, 看護婦は男であることがある。看護婦は男であることがある。In English, there are times when nurses are male. Our last example, この店の売り物は偽物であることがある。この店の売り物は偽物であることがある。In English, there are times when this shop's merchandise are fakes. To summarize, we express occasional occurrence in Japanese by taking the dictionary form or root form of the verb plus the set phrase koto ga arimasu or koto ga aru in plain style. Ru koto ga arimasu means there are times when so on and so forth, or sometimes so on and so forth. Ru koto ga arimasu can be used for verbs, adjectives, and nouns. And this ends our lesson on occasional occurrence. 次のレッスンにまた会いましょう。じゃあ、お疲れ様でした。If you're serious about becoming fluent in Japanese, it's important to practice daily, learn grammar, and build up vocabulary. My whole course is designed to give you a strong basic foundation in the Japanese language that you can build solidly upon. So please click like, share, or subscribe and watch the next video in the series. 日本語の勉強に頑張ってください。じゃあ、またね。